So shall I start, sir?
Okay, ma'am. You can start, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. The best investment is the investment in yourself. The more you learn, the more you'll earn. A subtle quote by Warren Buffett tells us the importance of realizing oneself. Yes, the more we learn is the more we earn. Today, we are given yet another chance to revivify the hidden skills. Good afternoon to everyone present today. First, I like to call upon a person who is the mentor behind our achievements. I invite Dr. M. Nirmala, Head of the Department, to deliver the welcome address. Nirmala, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Shananya ma'am. A very pleasant noon to all. On behalf of Hindustan Educational Charitable Trust, I'm greatly privileged to welcoming distinguished gathering, eminent speakers, and delegates from various parts of Tamil Nadu and other states for this enchanting occasion. It's gratifying to note that the agenda of this 7 days faculty development program covers captivating content related to research management. Today is the 6th day of a session under the topic of tools for social research. In this regard, on behalf of Hindustan Educational and Charitable Trust, I warmly welcome to our chief guest, Dr. R Velmurugan sir, Associate Professor in Commerce, Karpagam Academy of Higher Education, Coimbatore. He is an eminent speaker to support us through his experience and analyze about present essential requirements in research methodology. We are gratifying to him for his readily accepting our invitation. Our warm welcome you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm thankful to our Managing Trustee, Srimati Saraswati Kanayan, ma'am, our Executive Trustee, Dr. Priya Satish Prabhu, ma'am, Hindustan Educational and Charitable Trust for their continuous support to strengthen our academy. We also privileged to thank our Honorable CEO, Dr. Karnagaran, sir, and our Principal, Dr. A. Ponusami, sir, for their continuous support, leads motivational occasion for us. I'm grateful to welcoming faculty members and my colleagues on their interest and response for their continuous participation. I wish you all to get effective utilization of today's program. Thank you and enjoy the today's session. Once again, welcome you all. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Over to Saranya, ma'am.
I would like to invite our guest for the day, Dr. Velmurugan, sir. He is an Associate Professor from Commerce Department, Karpagam Academy of Higher Education. He has more than 14 years of teaching experience. He has to his credit 10 books, 64 international publications, 11 national publications, and 29 Scopus publications. His credentials are endless, and I found it challenging to cover his entire profile. Simply put, he is one of the best resourced person in the education sector. It's an honor to have him as today. I welcome Dr. Velmurugan sir to deliver his address. Sir, over
Ma'am.
to you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I thank management, principal, ma'am, principal, sir, Nirmala, ma'am, professor and head, Department of Commerce, and Geeta, ma'am, for having me this wonderful opportunity to interact with academicians, research scholars, and student friends. With this small intro, I will start my presentation. I hope the PowerPoint is visible, ma'am.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Sir,
Before,
it is visible.
okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Before moving straight away to statistical tools, I wish to discuss on few concepts on scaling techniques and level of significance. Then I will start covering about various tools of analysis. Because the scaling technique is part and parcel of analysis. But when we read about the theoretical concept, I feel it will be very dry. First, as far as research is concerned, these four scaling are very important. That too in SPSS, first three scale will play a major role. For example, nominal scaling, it is nothing but when you assign any number for identification purpose, it is called as nominal scaling. Once again, I will repeat. When we assign any number just for identification purpose, it is called as nominal scaling. Example, we will assign roll number for students, or we will assign number for two-wheeler or four-wheeler, etc. This is an example of nominal scaling. Okay, we are assigning number only for identification purpose. If any number is assigned for identification purpose, it is called as nominal scaling. Next scaling technique is ordinal scaling. When we assign number for ranking purpose, when we assign number for ranking purpose, it is known as ordinal scaling. It is known as ordinal scaling. Example, rating of movie. Nowadays, in online or everywhere, we will rating our movies. If we all assign number for rating of movies, for example 1 to 5 or 1 to 3, it is an example of ordinal scaling. Okay. Third scaling is interval scaling. Interval scale is one where there is order and the difference between two values is meaningful. For simple example, while we construct questionnaire or interview schedule, we will raise 5-point scale or 3-point scale question. All Likert scaling number assigned for Likert scaling questions is known as interval scaling. Okay. For example, numbers assigned for measuring a person's opinion is known as interval scaling. Last scaling is ratio scaling. A ratio scale is a quantitative scale where there is a true zero and equal intervals between neighboring points. Or ratio scale is assigned or used to measure the relationship that exists between two variables. Next, when we start our analysis, we quite often use this word level of significance. While we carry out analysis, or when you carry out analysis, we will accept or reject hypothesis based on this terminology, level of significance. I wish to inform what it implies. Few scholars, without knowing the meaning, they simply write interpretation. So I feel it is the time to mention what this level of significance denotes. Sir, level of significance mentions the error percentage. Error percentage, that is, if we consider 5% significant for analysis, that is, if you choose 5% level of significance for your analysis, it implied that in our analysis there is chances of having 5% error. That is, our result is said to be 95% accurate. If you took 5% level means there may be chances of becoming your result negative or wrong 5%. It denotes that your result is said to be 95% accurate. Suppose if you consider 1%, what it implies? If we consider 1% level of significance, it implied that our result is 99% accurate and there is a chances of 1% error. This is the meaning of level of significance. Okay, if you consider 5% means that it implies your result is, your finding is 95% accurate, and if you consider 1% level, it implies that your result is 99% accurate. These are the basic concepts I wish to discuss. Now I wish to move to next thing, validity of instrument. Before moving to analysis, first we want to discuss validity. While we collect primary data, we will make use of either questionnaire or interview schedule. Before collecting data or before finalizing the questionnaire or interview schedule, we want to confirm that the questionnaire which we constructed is said to be valid or accurate, or the question which we raised is sufficient to measure our need purpose. Let me discuss. Validity refers to the degree to which an instrument accurately measures what it intends to measure. Once again, I repeat, what it intends to measure. Instrument here denote questionnaire and interview schedule. Okay, there are various forms of measuring validity. I will explain both theoretical and analytical form. Theoretical form of measuring validity is face validity. What it means face validity? Generally speaking, the first step in validating a survey is to establish face validity. There are two important steps in this process. First is to have experts or people who understand our research topic and read through our questionnaire. Further, they should evaluate whether the questions effectively capture the topic under investigation. It is nothing but the constructed questionnaire. We want to surrender or hand over our constructed questionnaire with the subject experts, and we are receiving their views. That is called as face validity. It is nothing but we are preparing a questionnaire and we are submitting the questionnaire with a expert in the concerned discipline, and we are receiving their opinion or feedback. That is said to be face validity. Another method of face validity is we are hand overing our questionnaire to the psychometrician, that is, who is expert in questionnaire construction, and he or she will check our survey for common errors like confusing words or misleading questions. Next method is pilot study, which we quite often mention or carried out before finalizing our questionnaire or interview schedule. The second step is to carry out pilot study on a subset of your intended population. There are various methods. This is the two common methods which we can easily mention in our thesis. That is why I pointed out phase validity and pilot study. Okay, while you writing thesis or some other article, you can mention in your research methodology that whether you have validated your questionnaire or interview schedule by conducting either phase validity or by conducting pilot study, so that you are in safer zone. This is the theoretical aspect of measuring, or theoretical form of validating our instrument. Next is statistical form of validating measurement or statistical form of validating our questionnaire. This method is quite often used by researchers and it is highly appreciable. We will construct questionnaire in two forms. One is few researchers will construct their own questionnaire or interview schedule based on the previous review of literature. Few researchers will make use of well-established questionnaires. For example, if we think of service quality model, we will make use of Parasuraman model. Example, Parasuraman model is an example of a structured or well-established questionnaire. Okay, suppose if you planned to study job satisfaction of teachers, and as a researcher or as a scholar, if you construct your own questionnaire based on review of literature, then you want to verify or validate whether the questionnaire which you constructed is appropriate and sufficient questions have been raised to measure your ultimate goal, that is job satisfaction. That is the purpose of validating our questionnaire. It implies whether we are raised sufficient questions and the questions are appropriate for measuring job satisfaction. That is why we are validating. That is why we are validating. Suppose, as I said, as a researcher, if you constructed your own questionnaire based on review of literature, you want to carry out exploratory factor analysis, which you can carry out through SPSS with the help of SPSS alone. Then followed by, you want to carry out confirmatory factor analysis using MRs. Today, due to time constraint, I am going to discuss only the method of computing. I am not in a position to explain way of computing using SPSS or MRs due to time constraint. Later in future date, we will discuss. Okay. Suppose as a researcher, if you construct your own questionnaire, you want to measure or you want to validate your questionnaire either by employing exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. Based on the result only, we can justify that our instrument is validated. That is, we have raised sufficient questions Suppose if you adopted pre-established questionnaire, for example, as I mentioned, if you planned to employ Parasuraman model for raising or for studying service quality, then you may straight away validate your questionnaire by employing confirmatory factor analysis. Suppose if you construct your own questionnaire, you want to employ both exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. If you employ or use pre-established questionnaire, straight away you can make use of confirmatory factor analysis. Based on the exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis, you can validate your questionnaire. As per my suggestion, instead of validating your questionnaire by employing theoretical concept, you can validate your questionnaires or interview schedule by employing some statistical measures like explanatory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. Okay, is it right? Or is his voice is audible? Shall I proceed, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can proceed. It is audible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next is, once the questionnaire is constructed, and after carrying out a pilot study, before moving to analysis, we want to measure that collected data is reliable, for which we want to employ Cronbach. Let me discuss. Before employing any type of analysis, we want to identify or we want to verify whether the collected data are complete, accurate, and fit for analysis. Thus, in order to ascertain reliability of data, Cronbach alpha test should be employed. Cronbach alpha test should be employed. Let me discuss now one by one. If the calculated Cronbach alpha value is greater than 0.7, we can say data is acceptable and fit for analysis. If the calculated Cronbach alpha value is greater than 0.7, we can say data is acceptable and fit for analysis. If the calculated Cronbach alpha value ranges between greater than or equal to 0.8 and less than 0.9, we can infer data is good for analysis. And finally, if the Cronbach alpha value is greater than 0.9, we can say the data is excellent for analysis. That means if your Cronbach value is less than 0.6 or 0.5, most probably if the calculated Cronbach value, if it is resides or if it is less than 0.5, the data is said to be unfit for analysis. The data is said to be unfit for analysis. Usually, if the calculated Cronbach value is greater than 0.7, we can start or we can carry out analysis. If it is less than, if it is ranges between 6 to 7, it is also acceptable, but you want to offer justification that if the Cronbach value is between 6 and 7, we can also carry out analysis, but it is advisable to carry out analysis if your Cronbach value is greater than 0.7. If it is less than 0.7 means, 0.5 means, once again you want to improve your sample size, or it is better to collect new data. Okay, this is about the data reliability. Unless the data is reliable, if you carry out analysis, the result may not be significant, or the result which you observed or found is inappropriate. So before starting any analysis, once you complete the data collection, kindly verify whether the data offered by the respondents is reliable or fit for carrying out analysis, for which we want to employ Cronbach alpha test. Okay, next is data normality. Once you find the data is reliable, then only we should think of analysis. That too, before employing statistical tools, you want to identify whether the data is normally distributed or not normally distributed. Based on the normality of your data, only we want to decide whether we want to employ parametric test or non-parametric test. We will discuss one by one. A normality test is used to determine whether sample data has been drawn from a normally distributed population. After ascertaining whether data is normally distributed or not normally distributed, then only we have to finalize whether we want to employ parametric or non-parametric test. We can measure normality of data by preparing histogram, QQ plot, etc. But quite often or popularly we can employ KS test or Korngrove-Srimo test, shortly termed as KS test. Okay. Similarly, we also employ Shapiro-Wilk test. If your sample size is less than 50, for measuring normality, we can employ Shapiro-Wilk test. Once again, I will repeat. If your sample size is less than 50, if your sample size is less than 50, then to measure whether data and population is normally distributed, you want to employ Shapiro-Wilk test. Suppose if the population is more than 50 or if the population is large, to measure whether data is normally distributed, you want to employ KS test. How to measure whether the data is normally distributed is, if the p-value of the KS test, if the p-value or significance of KS test is larger than 0.05, we assume population is normally distributed. If the p-value of KS test is larger than 0.05, we assume the population is normally distributed. For example, if you look up to this slide, your significant value is less than 0.5. If this is significant or p value is less than 0.5, it is not normal or less than population is not normally
Excuse me, sir.
distributed. Okay, ma'am, please, ma'am. Ma'am, hello. Ma'am, anything problem, ma'am?
Sir, it's okay, sir. The voice was breaking.
Okay, ma'am.
Now it's okay.
I will not talk, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Once again, I'll repeat, ma'am. If the p-value of Ks test is greater than or larger than 0.05, we can assume or we can infer population is normally distributed. If the calculated p-value is less than 0.05, we infer it is the population is not normally distributed. If you note this example, the value of p-value is less than 0.05. It implies the population is not normally distributed. Okay, once again I repeat, ma'am. If your population, if your sample size is less than 50, for measuring data normality, you want to employ Shapiro-Wilk test. If your population is greater than 50 or if your population is said to be large, for measuring normality, you want to employ KS test. That the thumb rule is, if the calculated p-value is greater than 0.05, we can infer the data is normally distributed. If the reverse trend, if the calculated p-value is less than 0.05, we can infer population is not normally distributed. Based on this normality alone, we want to decide whether we want to employ parametric and non-parametric test. If the population is normally distributed, then parametric test alone should be employed. Once again I inform, if the population is normally distributed based on your KS test, if you infer if the population is normally distributed, then kindly employ parametric test. If the population is not normally distributed, then you should employ only non-parametric test alone should be employed. Okay, mere simply employing ANOVA or correlation or chi-square will not justify. First, before employing any analysis, kindly verify whether your population is normally distributed or not normally distributed by employing KS test or some other test. Most probably you make use of KS test. Once you identify your population is normally distributed, then kindly employ parametric test like independent t-test, analysis of variance. If you found your population is not normally distributed, then kindly employ Mann-Whitney, the independent t-test equivalent to independent t-test is Mann-Whitney U-test. Equivalent to analysis of variance is Kruskal-Wallis test. Okay, then based on the normality alone, you want to decide whether you want to employ parametric or non-parametric test. Okay, if the population is normally distributed, you should employ only parametric test. If the population is found not normally distributed, then you should employ non-parametric test. Now I will discuss one by one analysis. Once again, kindly verify the equivalent to independent t-test is Mann-Whitney U-test. The equivalent of analysis of variance is Kruskal-Wallis test. The equivalence of PAD t-test is Wilcoxon test. The equivalent to Carl-Pearson correlation is Spearman correlation. Okay, now we will discuss one by one. What is the purpose of applying independent t-test or Mann-Whitney test? If your population is normally distributed, means you will employ independent t-test. If your population is not normally distributed, means you want to employ Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay, now we will discuss what is the purpose of employing independent t-test. To find whether mean denotes average. Mean denotes average. To find whether mean differs between two groups, independent t-test is employed. For example, if you note this value, this one denotes as first group and two denotes another group. If you want to measure whether these two average differs, for example, first group average is, in first group around 373 respondents are available. Their average value is 85.14. In second group, there are 25 respondents. Their average score ranges around 86.98 or 99. To find whether there is any significant difference between these two average, we want to employ independent t-test. Okay, for example, to identify whether average mark secured by male students and female students differs, we can employ independent t-test. Let me assume in a class, in a school, there are 373 male students, and all the average marks secured by all the 373 male students stood at 85.14. And whereas in a particular school, there are only 25 female students, and the average mark secured by all 25 female students stood at 86.99. Then here we are going to verify whether the mark secured by male student and female student differs significantly. We can employ independent t-test. Okay, if the population is normally distributed, we can employ independent t-test. If population is not normally distributed, then instead of employing independent t-test, we can employ Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay, based on the normality, we can ascertain whether to employ independent t-test or Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay, next is analysis of variance. What is the purpose of employing analysis of variance or Kruskal-Wallis test? To find whether mean differs more than two groups. More than two groups, analysis of variance, that is shortly named as ANOVA test, is employed. If you note this, there is a three groups. First group comprises of 70 respondents, second group comprises of 156 respondents, and third group comprises of 172 respondents. Here it is three groups. If it is two group, we want to employ independent t-test. If it is more than two group, we want to employ analysis of variance or Kruskal-Wallis test. Okay, for example, to find whether awareness differs among respondents who reside in urban, semi-urban and rural area. Here it is three group. Urban comprises of first group, semi-urban comprises of second group, and rural comprises of three groups. Okay, here it is, as it is more than three groups, we can employ analysis of variance. Okay, are you able to follow, ma'am? Or first is to, if we want to measure whether mean differs between two groups, we can employ independent t-test, or equivalent to independent t-test non-parametric test is Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay, if we want to measure whether mean differs more than two groups, we want to employ analysis of variance, or equivalent to analysis of variance Kruskal-Wallis test is a non-parametric test. Okay, if the population is normally distributed, we can employ analysis of variance. Else, if population is not normally distributed, then instead of employing ANOVA test, we can employ Kruskal-Wallis test. Ma'am, are you able to follow whether there is any confusion? If there is any confusion, dear
Yes, sir.
participants, you may clarify. Ma'am, shall I proceed?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Ma'am, hello. Shall I proceed, ma'am?
Sir, it's perfect, sir. It's perfect, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your feedback. Next is paired t-test. The purpose to find before and after effect, we may employ parity test. I will explain what is the before and after effect, the purpose. But at the same time, at this juncture, while writing thesis, either it may be MPhil or PhD, don't mention formula. Always try to mention the purpose. If you are a UG student, you can employ or you can mention your formula on your thesis or dissertation. When you move for higher studies, kindly don't mention the formula. Now it will show plagiarism. Instead of mentioning formula, kindly point out or mention the purpose of applying statistical tools. Okay, that is why I am informing. The parity test is the purpose of applying parity test is to find before and after effect. We may employ parity test. For example, to ascertain whether women earning capacity differs before joining self-help group and after joining self-help group, we can employ parity test. Here BJB joins implies before joining the group. AJG denotes after joining the group. Here I want to measure whether the female members or women members monthly income has increased after joining the group. First column denotes the monthly income of women members before joining the group. Second column denotes the women members monthly income after joining the group. Here we are going to measure whether the income or the women members earning level have increased after joining the group. We can employ parity test if it is if the population is normally distributed. Okay, if the population is not normally distributed, instead of employing parity test, you can employ Wilcoxon test. Wilcoxon test is a non-parametric test. Okay, and I will quote one more example. Similarly, to ascertain whether company earning capacity before financial crisis and after financial crisis differs, we can employ parity test. Okay, first example I quoted is whether self-help group members, women members earning capacity has increased before joining or after joining. Another example is to ascertain whether the company financial performance have increased or decreased before financial crisis and after financial crisis. Also you can employ parity test. Another example is to ascertain whether student mark scoring differs before attending special coaching class and after attending special coaching class. Also we can employ parity test. This I mentioned as before and after effect. Okay, before the earning capacity of women members before joining the self-help group and women members earning capacity after joining the self-help group. So that is why I mentioned it is the purpose of employing parity test is to find before and after effect. Before joining the group, what is the income earning capacity of women members? Once they join the women self-help group, what is the earning potential? Whether the earning potential has differed, increased or decreased before and after joining the group. That is why to measure the purpose, we want to employ parity test. Okay. If the population is normally distributed, we can employ parity test. As usual, if population is not normally distributed, then instead of employing parity test, we can employ Wilcoxon test. Wilcoxon test. Parity test is a parametric test. Wilcoxon is a non-parametric test. Okay. Next is correlation. If the population is normally distributed, you can employ Pearson. If the population is not normally distributed, you can employ Spearman rank correlation. Okay. Now I will explain what is the purpose of applying correlation. To find nature of relation between dependent and independent variable, correlation test is employed. Once I will repeat, to find nature of relation between dependent and independent variable, correlation test is employed. Here, nature of relation implies whether there exists positive or negative correlation between dependent and independent variable. Once again, I will repeat. Here, the word nature denote or infers whether the positive or negative relation exists between dependent and independent variable. I will quote an example. When independent variable increases, then if dependent variable also increase, then it is known as positive correlation. When independent variable increases and if dependent variable also increases, then it is known as positive correlation. Example for positive correlation. We can compare sales and profit. Here, sales is said to be independent variable and profit is said to be dependent variable. When sales increases and if profit also increases, this is known as positive correlation. As I mentioned, when independent variable increases, if dependent variable also increase, it is known as positive correlation. Here we have compared sales and profit. Here sales is an independent variable and profit is dependent variable. When sales increases and if profit also increases, this is an example of positive correlation. Okay. Example for negative correlation. When independent variable decrease and the value of dependent variable increase. Once again I repeat, when independent variable decrease and the value of dependent variable increase, it is known as negative correlation. I will quote an example. Let me compare profit and expenses. If we compare, between profit and expenses, profit is said to be dependent variable. And expenses is said to be independent variable. When expenses decrease and if profit increases, this is an example of negative correlation. That's all. If population is normally distributed, we can employ correlation. As usual, if population is not normally distributed, then instead of employing Karl Pearson, we can employ Spearman rank correlation. Next, one more analysis, chi-square. I think it is not available in slide. I am extremely sorry, but I will explain theoretically. To find what is the purpose of applying chi-square? Chi-square is a non-parametric test. There is no equivalent parametric test. Once again, I will repeat, if your population is not normally distributed, if you plan to apply some non-parametric test, means you can apply chi-square. There is no equivalent parametric test for chi-square. Chi-square is a non-parametric test. What is the purpose of applying chi-square? To find association between two variables. That is, to find whether there exists any association between dependent and independent variables. You can employ chi-square test. Example, I will quote an example. We can find whether there exists any association between educational qualification of a respondent and his or her IQ level, that is intelligent quotient level. Based on the result, we can prove whether there exists any significant association between education qualification and IQ level. Usually, when our educational qualification increases, most probably our IQ level should also increase. Okay, we can find association between, one more example, we can also find association between regularity of watching news or reading newspaper and IQ level. Frequency of reading newspapers or frequency of watching TV or TV news will also increase our IQ level. When frequency of watching news or reading newspaper increases, surely I assume the reader's IQ level may also increase. To verify this also, we can employ chi-square test. As I already mentioned, the purpose of applying chi-square is to find association between two variables. Okay. Next is regression. Regression. I will inform what is the purpose. To find combined influence of select independent variables over dependent variable, regression test is employed. Once again, I repeat, that to find combined influence of select independent variable over dependent variable, regression test is employed. I will quote an example for easy understanding. Let me assume average normal sales by a trading concern per day stood at rupees 100. Example, average normal sales by a trading concern per day is rupees 100. The manufacturer or a trader want to increase his sales, for which he adopted. First he adopted. When a trader offers discount, first initially the trader offers discount. When he offers his discount, his sales increased to 130. But this before offering any discount, the average sales of a trader stood at 100. Once he planned to increase his sales, he offered a discount. Once he offered his discount, his average sales increased to 130 rupees. That is, thus by offering discount, his sales increased by 30 rupees. Next strategy adopted is when trader offers discount and offer. First method is the trader offered only discount. Next mechanism he adopted is discount and offer. Buy one or buy two, get one. When he offers, when trader offer both discount and offer, his sales increased to 150. Thus, by offering discount and offer, his sales increased by 50 rupees. This is called as combined effect. When a trader offer discount and offer, this is called as combined effect. His sales increased by 50 rupees. Next is when a trader offers discount, offer and carry out advertisement, his sales increased to 180. The third mechanism is the trader adopted discount. Next is fact analysis. The basic purpose behind employing fact analysis is to find multi-collinearity that exists among independent variables. Multi-collinearity is the occurrence of high intercorrelations among two or more independent variables in a multiple regression model. The coefficient becomes very sensitive to small changes in the model. The multi-collinearity reduces the precision of the estimate coefficient, which weakens the statistical power of your regression model. You may not be able to trust the p-values to identify independent variables that are statistically significant. If you note the value of R square in regression, if you note, this is an example, if you note the R square value, it stood at 0.509. We should read as 50.90%. What it implies means the working environment, organization culture, compensation and rewards, training and development, these are said to be 4 independent variables. These four independent variables collectively contributes job satisfaction of employee to a tune of 50.90%. If you carry out analysis for secondary data, probably you can note R square may stood at 100%, 10%. Okay, if you select appropriate variable, and if there is no correlation exists between these independent variables, your R square value will increase. For example, here I consider four independent variables: working environment, organization culture, compensation and rewards, training and development. If any correlation or relation exists between these four independent variables, your R square value will decrease and your regression equation will not said to be good to fit. If there is no relation exists between these four independent variables, then your R square value will increase and we can say our regression equation is said to be good to fit. Okay. Okay. If you note the value of R square in regression, which denotes the contribution of independent variables towards dependent variable. Suppose if there exists any correlation between or among independent variables, surely your regression R square will be very low. As I pointed out, here I adopted four independent variables. Yes, there is no relation between these four independent variables that assist me to secure 50.90% of R square. If there is any relation exist among or between these independent variables, surely your R square value will not increase. Okay, in order to avoid such problem, first we may compute factor analysis and identify the significant variables. That is variables whose value is greater than 0.7. In certain occasions, you may even consider variables whose value is greater than 0.5. And if such values are considered as independent variables for regression, surely your regression equation framed will be good to fit and your R square value also found high. Lastly, I am going to touch rank test. As I mentioned, for ordinal scaling, that is number assigned for ranking, if you raise any questions and where you instruct the respondents to rank the questions, you can employ two tests. First is weighted average rank. That is previous in the olden days, we employ average ranking, weighted average ranking. Now the trending ranking technique is Garrett ranking test. With this, considering the time schedule, I conclude my session. If there is any doubts or clarification, now the forum is open. Please.
Dear participants, if you have any queries, you can raise your questions.
Sir, good afternoon. This is Geeta from Hindustan College.
Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am.
It's a very nice explanation, easy to understand, sir. So I have one question. In future, suppose I plan to publish my article in Web of Science or International Journal, how many tools I want to use, sir? It's a minimum level is there, sir?
Ma'am, there is no, as far as my experience is concerned, ma'am, tools are, the number of tools is not a matter, ma'am. The tool should be appropriate for the objectives, ma'am. That is the main thing, ma'am. Even with a single tool also, I have published article in Scopus, ma'am. But the tool should be appropriate for the, to fulfill, it should be appropriate, ma'am. That's all, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, another question from the audience.
Please, ma'am.
Dr. Sangeeta, ma'am. She asks, suppose we are mentioning the scaling is wrong. What is the result? Will the result be varying?
Ma'am, result scaling, I means, ma'am, which scaling technique, ma'am? Ma'am, the result will not vary, ma'am. result will not vary. The only there is a basic for example, if you adopt nominal scaling, that is number assigned for identification purpose, that should be considered as an independent variable for chi-square ANOVA independent t-test. It should not be, as far as when we compute for correlation or regression, usually we should not entertain nominal scaling variables, ma'am. That is the basic law, ma'am. That's all.
Sir,
Thank you,
hello.
sir. Thank you. Sir,
Okay.
another question.
Good
Please,
afternoon.
ma'am.
Can you explain the mediation analysis?
Mediation effect, ma'am. That is why while computing
Mediation analysis.
mediation assessment, that we will while we compute structured regression model, ma'am, where there is a we will employ a mediation analysis, mediation effect, ma'am, that we call as mediation effect. Okay, ma'am. For example, hello.
Need item.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, it's audible.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. For example, ma'am, if you for example, for increasing sales, if we think that reduce offering discount is one of the variable, and advertise we can employ advertisement as a mediation effect, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, do we need item analysis for tool? Any tool? What we are going to imply on community people?
Ma'am, kindly repeat the question, ma'am.
Do we need item analysis for tool? When tool is able for community people?
Ma'am, item analysis mean? Hello?
Item analysis where the question is strong or hard or like this.
Ma'am, yes or no question, ma'am? Do you mean?
Item analysis. Do we need item analysis for tool?
Not needed, ma'am. Not needed. Item analysis is not needed. Just you want to measure whether collected after collecting your questionnaire, you want to measure the normality of data for Likert scaling questions. Based on it, you can finalize the tool, ma'am. That is sufficient.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I am Ganesh Acharya from Mangalore University.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. In case we are not able to trace or find the exact population of the study, then how to consider the base for the sample, sir?
Sir, if the population is known, then only we can adopt random sampling. If the population is unknown, there is one more method, so Morgan stable is available, sir. Okay, based on your Morgan stable, sir, MORGANS, Morgan stable. Okay. Based on your level of significance, you may choose your sample size that may range between 400 to 450, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But at the time of mentioning, please kindly quote that based on the Morgan stable that you determined your sample size. That will be your safer side, sir.
Okay, sure, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Your presentation is excellent, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
At this side, Atunpreet Kaur. I'm a research scholar at Amity University, Noida. Sir, I wanted to ask that what is the best method to do mediation? I mean, I have seen many research papers. In some, they are applying bootstrapping, while in the others, they are applying Sobel test. So, how we should select about this?
Ma'am, actually, to be frank, I have no idea. I will mention my mobile number. You may quote my mention 94883 48559. I will verify and I will inform you, ma'am. This is my WhatsApp number. Okay.
Okay, sir. No problem.
I am not interested to offer sumarification answer. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, please. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Sir, one more question from audience, sir.
Please, ma'am.
Can you say how to interpret?
Interpret, ma'am. Shall I interpret for the t-test, ma'am? I will offer an example for interpretation for t-test, ma'am. Okay. Suppose if we take this an example,
Okay, sir.
let me assume first group comprises of male students. Their average mark is 85, and second group comprises of female students. Now, interpretation may differ from person to person. I never say this is the only way of writing interpretation. This, based on my observation, I will say, if I this mean is that will be the scoring pattern, ma'am. I will mention first number 1 denotes male students, number 2 denotes female students. We can write like that, ma'am. For example, the mean score is found high among female students than male students. Okay. For example, the average percentage of male students stood at 85.14, and average marks secured by female student is 86.98 or 99. I written like that, ma'am. That is, female students secured more marks than male students. This is the basic interpretation. And to find whether the this mean percentage differs, we want to look after this value, ma'am. That is p value. As the calculated p value is greater than 0.5, it is inferred there does not exist significant mean difference among two group of respondents classified based on gender. Hence, the null hypothesis is accepted. This is the model of writing interpretation for t-test, independent t-test, ma'am. Okay. Or if he or she needs specific interpretation for some specific elements, I will inform, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, please.
Say good afternoon, sir. This is Sudhanya from University of Madras.
Okay, ma'am.
I would have asked a question that mediation analysis.
Ma'am, which one is, ma'am?
Mediation analysis.
Okay, ma'am.
Can you explain that mediation analysis and how to interpret?
Ma'am, actually, I pointed out. I will kindly mention, clarify your doubts through WhatsApp. I want to verify and I will inform, ma'am. Please, ma'am. Okay. And once again, I will inform my number. WhatsApp number is 94883-48559. I will read through and I will gather some examples so that I feel it is more comfortable for explain you. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
Participants, do anyone have any other queries? Participants, do you have any other queries?
No, ma'am.
So shall we wind up the session, sir?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Really, it was really an informative session. And next, I call Dr. N. Lakshmi Priya to deliver the word of thanks. Lakshmi Priya, ma'am.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this research-oriented webinar. First of all, I would like to thank our chief guest, Dr. R Velmurugan sir, for his patient and clear-cut explanation on the topic of tools for social research. Today's session is enlightened with full of knowledge, sir. You gave deep insights into the topic and also revealed when to apply the statistical tools according to the variables and explained clearly its usage, sir. Understanding the application of various tools in research is a great task for the researcher, but after attending this webinar will definitely help us in all our future studies and continuous research work. Once again, thank you, sir. Without
thank you for opportunity, ma'am.
yes, sir. Without participants, an arena will not be fulfilled. I would like to say thanks to our participants for the patience and energetic, eagerly asked queries. Thanks to our management for the continuous support. Thanks to the Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Karnagaran sir. Thanks to our Principal sir, Dr. A. Pondasamy sir, who always encourages to do this kind of program. Next, I would like to say thanks to our pillar and Head Department of Commerce with Professional Accounting and Accounting Finance, Dr. M. Nirmala ma'am, who took initiative to organize this kind of research-oriented program during this needful occasion. Thank you, ma'am. Once again, I thank you all.
Thank
Shall I
you,
put-
Lakshmi.
Velmurugan sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Once
you so
Thank-
much, sir. Very good session, sir. Very informative session, sir.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for offering the opportunity, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you a lot, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Shall I quit, ma'am?
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.